Scrolling through social media? There are lots of people offering secrets to make money quickly. You can find the same kind of guys on every platform, with the same kind of spiel. And those guys existed before the internet too. Every generation had their own version of that guy. The words might change, but the pitch was the same. And we kept falling for it again and again. History has taught us a lot, but for some reason, this is an exception. Why do we keep falling for the same old act, and how can we avoid taking the bait? In 1821, a Scottish adventurer, General Gregor MacGregor, sailed from the shores of Central America to United Kingdom. On his travel, he earned a royal title, His Highness Gregor Cacique of Poiais. And he arrived in London with an opportunity of a lifetime. He discovered a new promised land, the country of Poiais. A book, Sketch of the Mosquito Shore, including the territories of Poiais, by an elusive, Thomas Strangeways, described rivers, lined with globules of pure gold, and soil so rich, it could yield 3 harvests a year. Gregor MacGregor opened an office in London, unfurled the Poiasan flag, and composed a ballad. The Poiais Emigrant. People could come exchange pounds for Poiais dollars, or buy a piece of Poiais itself, as hundreds did. In today's dollar, MacGregor raised over 20 million. There was just one problem. There was no Poiais. Captain Strangeways was Gregor MacGregor. And he made the whole thing up. It was one of the most outlandish scams in history, but it was far from the first, or the last. Most human beings are terrible lie detectors. But we think that we are good at detecting lies. That's one reason why we're often fooled. We're actually wired to trust, but it also means that we're susceptible to bad actors, who take advantage for their own personal, malicious aims. You might have received many emails and advertisements, which said that you have won a large amount, and you just need to pay the tax. These are all advance fee scams. You pay some money now, in exchange for a lot of money later, which you never receive eventually. The most successful version of this scam dates back hundreds of years. You would receive a letter from a very wealthy person, who needs a little money to escape a terrible circumstance. And on the other side, we'll give you a handsome reward. These letters generally used to come from prisoners. But these days, it's coming from a Nigerian princess.
Another well-known scheme is one that involves a Nigerian prince. It's been going on since even before the internet was a thing. But now the game has changed. Cyber criminals are hooking in victims and stealing their cash using far more sophisticated methods, and they're raking in billions.
There is another popular scam that's just slightly more complicated. In this scheme, you persuade people to invest in something that's worthless, pumping up its price, and then you dump your stock when it's at its peak. This happens a lot today, with cryptocurrency. A schemer will send out a pump signal in a messaging app like Telegram. Insiders rush to buy the coin, boosting the price, then other people who think it must be a hot stock rush in and buy it too. And then the insider sells off all his stocks. The entire cycle takes only a few minutes. And then, there's a slow burn investment scam that can survive for decades. It's named after Charles Ponzi, an Italian immigrant who back in 1920s made a fantastic promise. He'd double your money in 90 days, guaranteed. But in reality, he was simply paying early investors with money from new investors. That's how all Ponzi schemes work. The only hitch is, if enough of the investors ask for their money back at once, the whole thing collapses. Which is what happened in 2008, when this type of scene infamously came back into the spotlight.
Wall Street veteran Bernard Madoff has been arrested and charged with running a $50 billion Ponzi scheme. This is one of the biggest fraud cases ever.
There is another scheme, called the pyramid scheme. Here, you don't borrow from one person to pay to another, but you pay the person, if he convinces the other person to join your scheme, and the pyramid grows and grows. Multi-level marketing companies also rely on recruitment through these schemes. You may have seen friends online, trying to sell you products and recruit you to also sell those products. But these are legitimate businesses, as long as most of the money comes from outside customers buying their products. Pyramid schemes aren't, their products are pretty worthless, so most of the money comes from recruitment. And when the scheme runs out of new people to recruit, then the whole thing collapses. Then, there is the final category: coaching schemes. They're very similar to advance fee schemes, but instead of paying money for the promise of more money, you pay money for the knowledge that they promise will make you more money.
Wouldn't you like to learn how to make a fortune in real estate without needing any money? Just like my students and I are doing all across America every single day?
Except the promises are false. The money-making program largely don't deliver. So next time you see such an advertisement, remember that if a person knows how to become a millionaire, he will never sell you an online course. They are just great salesmen, who use every tactic in the book. All of these kinds of schemes rely on similar tactics, and they tend to thrive at certain moments. Moments of change. You have con artists throughout the history, who came up during wars and pandemics, or different things which are scary and new. That's when con artists can actually swoop in, and give you the stories that you want to believe in, give you the truth that you want to be the truth. And technology has made that easier and easier. With the invention of television, it gave a great boom to these schemers. They used all kinds of tactics and schemes to scam people with a huge reach, provided by the television. Then came the internet. It became much easier to cast a wide net, which gave a rise to more petty con artists. Online scammers took advantage of every new thing. When internet marketing became a thing, a new crop scheme promised to teach you how to make millions online. And then social media gave scammers a whole new way to reach audiences. Then Amazon came along, and scammers spawned a new kind of coaching scheme, teaching you how to buy products cheap and then sell them for profit. Today, with the help of all the options available to the scammers, they are able to scam people more than before, and in a million different ways. So it's our job to be smart enough to know when we are getting scammed. Most of the times we can't trust other people. Trust may lead you to buy a piece of a fictional paradise, but it also helped us build a world that's much closer to paradise than our ancestors could have ever imagined.